watching In the Loop. This is a weekly theme park news show from Park Rush. I don't know about you, Josh. I feel like I'm going in the loop right now.
Oh, God, yeah. It feels like Groundhog Day.
It certainly does. It certainly does. We're going to aim to get through this week's news fairly quickly. If you're new here, as I say, we're a weekly theme park news show brought to you by the Park Rush podcast. But rather than be just a podcast you can get in your ears, we're also a YouTube show you can see with your eyes, which probably makes this a lot worse than just a podcast. But we're here anyway, and we're doing it. And if anyone wonders why I'm wearing a coat, I've just got in from work, and I'm so committed to my second unpaid job here as a theme park podcaster that I just got straight into it. Josh, I hope you're doing well, and that the funeral for our beloved Queen today, as of recording, hasn't left you feeling too down.
No, I'm feeling good. I thought it was a very good ceremony, and full of a lot of pomp and circumstance. I enjoyed it in a weird way. But yeah, it's good to get back to theme park news.
Absolutely. You know something that I think would have improved coverage of the Queen's funeral, Josh?
What's that?
Augmented reality.
Oh,
Hell yeah. Wouldn't it have been way better if you could make it look as though Prince Andrew was actually walking through your living room? You could see all the sweat on his brow. Right, no way. No, you wouldn't.
No.
That would have been very unrealistic.
Yeah.
My bad. Anyway, augmented reality, Josh. It seems like potentially, well, it's kind of a theme park technology of the present, but I think it seems like increasingly it's going to become a theme park technology of the future. We've seen it used at Universal in Japan with the new Mario Kart ride, which is coming to Florida and California and Singapore in the coming years. And now, via this story from Robert Niles at Theme Park Insider, we know that Disney filed a patent for augmented reality without glasses.
Wow.
Which seems like the holy grail. I mean, I remember when the Nintendo 3DS came out with promising glassesless 3D. And it was a fun gimmick, I've got to say. It did kind of fall down any time you weren't looking directly at the screen. But, if anyone's able to eventually make 3D or even AR a glassless experience, then I think that's going to be absolutely massive, not just for theme parks, but cinemas and places like that. But anyway, this of course regards theme park rides.
Yep.
And it's interesting, Josh. I mean, Disney have kind of set standards, I would say, in the way that they've been able to blend screen technology, digital technology with physical sets and props. We've seen it obviously on classics like the Haunted Mansion. We've seen it all the way up to new stuff like Rise of the Resistance. So it's pretty exciting to see them dabbling in this kind of futuristic tech based on what the patent says, based on what these diagrams from the patent are kind of getting at.
Yeah.
What would you hope to see from Disney when it comes to this kind of technology?
Yeah, I think something like the holograms in Star Wars, they'd benefit from this a lot. You could have it on ride structures, maybe like in Star Tours maybe, or a different Star Wars ride. You could even put it in something like Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway, where the characters are in the physical world anywhere really, rather than having to be actual physical animatronics. And maybe even in that upcoming Avengers ride, Tom. Maybe they could use it there.
Well, I don't know where you've got that idea from, Josh. It's hard to imagine that you've just plucked that out of thin air. Some smart gentleman must have mentioned it to you in the
passing,
in the last little while. Right, yes. But I totally agree, as luck would have it, that yes, perhaps this technology sounds maybe far off, but then so did that Avengers ride that they announced for Disneyland at D23 last week. Perhaps their arrivals will line up in such a way that means that kind of tech could could form an important part of that ride.
Yeah.
Uh, in the same way that Rise of the Resistance pushed boundaries, it would be nice to see a Marvel ride push boundaries in the same way. We
Mm.
said as much on last week's show, and given that the concept art for that Avengers ride promised a kind of multiverse scenario where you'd have different versions of characters turning up and fighting alongside one another, AR could make that work in some interesting ways, because you could have characters that perhaps wouldn't look suited to appearing in a more realistic environment that AR would make more feasible. A more cartoony looking Spider-Man
Yeah.
swinging into a more realistic setting could work pretty well in AR.
Yes. Actually, thinking about it here, the diagram that one of the diagrams used, the car looks a bit like the Guardians of the Galaxy car from
Mm.
the Epcot ride there. So maybe this is like a futuristic version of that ride, whereas instead of using screens, they're using this AR projection stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the technology does seem like a little bit of that it's iterating on stuff we've seen with 3D, but also stuff we've seen with Pepper's Ghosts going way back, which are obviously very widely seen these days beyond just theme parks.
Mm.
Even in the Roman baths, when I visited last year, did they have their own Pepper's Ghosts effect? And yeah, this
Cool,
seems
yeah.
similar in terms of kind of projecting images onto a transparent surface in front of you, and through that being able to kind of create this 3D effect that makes it look like characters or whoever else might well be kind of wandering around in that same physical space as you. And yeah, I mean, it's just cool to see, to know that very clever theme park engineers are clearly at least thinking about this kind of stuff. And yeah, I think that Avengers ride is actually quite a tangible um, option
Mm.
for how this perhaps could be applied in an exciting way.
For sure.
So it's one we'll keep an eye on for sure.
Yes.
Or well, two eyes. I think if you look at it with one eye, the 3D effect might
Yeah,
not
it
work.
just won't work. Yeah.
No, absolutely not. If there's one man, Josh, though, that might get in between Disney and an exciting but likely expensive addition to its parks, I'm afraid to say that man is Bob Chapek, Josh.
Oh boy.
Hell yeah. Your friend of mine
Yeah.
is back in the news via Jess Colopi, I'm going to go with, or Colopi maybe. Apologies if I've butchered that. But she, writing for Inside the Magic, has got details of Bob Chapek wanting to link the Disney Parks experience with Disney Plus.
Yes.
In more ways. This comes from a leaked call with shareholders, where he talks about his desire for a universal guest experience.
Isn't that the other
Basically wanting
company?
to be able to. Well, yeah. He'll go wherever the money is, Josh. If he starts to sniff more moolah at Universal, I'm sure he'll be swanning over there and trying to find himself a role. But
For sure.
yeah, he basically talks about wanting to take advantage of all the data that Disney are able to collect from guests at their parks, people staying on site, and all the information they're able to gather from people on Disney Plus, and combine all that and use it to make recommendations and suggestions to them based on their preferences. So perhaps if someone has spent a lot of time at the parks and then logs on to Disney Plus, maybe they'll be asked or suggested that they watch the Imagineering story. Maybe if they've watched a load of Star Wars cartoons on Disney Plus, the Disney World app will suggest they prioritize Smuggler's Run so they can go and see their boy Hondo. Those are some of the things which seem very surface level to me that Mr. Bob is talking about here.
Yeah.
I mean, does this appeal to you in any way, or would you be hoping for something a little bit more, from this idea of linking the parks and your Disney Plus account?
I think that sounds like what I would expect them to do. I think having something a bit more than that would be nice. Some sort of exclusive opportunity for the super fans, like exclusive merch maybe, or exclusive experiences that you can do. One thing for me maybe would be if, for example, if there was a Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order TV series on Disney Plus, if they made that show and then you could go, and it gave you the exclusive opportunity to build a BD droid in the droid construction shop. I think that'd be really cool. I'd be well up for that. I would do that. I'd watch so much of that Fallen Order TV show. But
Yeah.
the TV show doesn't exist, and the opportunity doesn't exist. So Disney are just losing my money there.
Yeah, I think unfortunately, if I linked my Disney Plus account with my Disney Parks app and then turned up to Magic Kingdom, they'd probably just arrest me for having watched the Country Bears 7 times.
Yeah,
And I wouldn't have any complaints, to be fair. It's what I deserve.
yeah, 100%.
But yeah, look, we've seen this kind of thing before from other corporations and CEOs trying to dress up what some might see as intrusions of privacy as a positive for them. Like,
It's all
yeah,
about
we're stealing all
synergy.
your, yeah, we're taking all your data, but we're going to use it in a way that's convenient for you. And it's like, oh, go on then, take all my data. It's fine. At
Yeah.
least, I'll know which Mickey cartoons to watch because of a ride that I went on. Great.
Great.
Yeah, like you say, Josh, this sounds very much like something they will do. I hope there is a little bit more to it than this, but I think what we've learned from the Disney of the last few years is to kind of set your expectations low and hope that they are at least able to clear those.
Yeah. Always set your expectations lower than Disney have set their expectations.
Yeah, yeah. I'm not a fan though. On paper, I don't think this would encourage me to spend more time on any of Disney's kind of apps and services. To be honest,
No, probably less time.
exactly. Content is king. It's a cliche because it's true. If you want me to spend more time in your parks and more time on Disney Plus, make cool new things.
Hell yeah.
Don't spend all your time trying to kind of arbitrarily come up with ways that you think might make me want to spend more time on those things, because you're probably wrong about that.
Yeah.
Anyway, Josh, speaking about things that are probably wrong, being excited about theme parks in Abu Dhabi. But here I am, like an absolute sucker,
Yeah.
thinking that this SeaWorld Abu Dhabi park actually sounds quite good.
It does sound quite
This
good.
comes from Arab News. The next generation theme park, SeaWorld Abu Dhabi, is 90% complete and is going to open in 2023. There's some cool concept art here of how the park is going to look. There's concept art elsewhere as well that's worth checking out on the official site for SeaWorld Abu Dhabi that shows a little bit more about how this park is going to be laid out. Essentially, large chunks of it are going to be indoors. Certainly that's where you're going to find all kind of the animal experiences and animal attractions, the massive aquarium specifically.
Yeah.
And then outdoors, there are going to be some pretty impressive looking roller coasters. But yeah, what was notable about this for me, Josh, is that I have found the US SeaWorld parks to be in this slightly awkward place
Yep.
since all the controversy about Blackfish as they pivot towards rides, the marine life experiences and animal experiences and enclosures and shows that they've had that really set them apart from the competition are starting to feel very dated because they're either getting rid of them or just kind of letting them fall into disrepair with a view to getting rid of them once they are, without being morbid about it, once all the animals are dead.
Yeah.
With this part, they're able to think about what SeaWorld really means from the ground up in a more modern context, and therefore, the idea of having a massive indoor aquarium is more palatable, I think, to people generally than making shows where you're ordering whales to jump through hoops and whatever. So this, I think, from that perspective, sounds like actually something that the US SeaWorld parks could maybe look to for inspiration themselves in the years ahead if they are going to be looking to reinvent themselves beyond just, let's have some roller coasters. Because as good as some of SeaWorld's newer coasters have been, they don't set themselves apart from the competition just by building some decent coasters.
No, for sure. Certainly not in the locations where you find them, where there are already parks with decent roller coasters.
Oh, for sure. Decent, I would say, is an understatement. I mean,
Yes.
my favorite coaster in Florida probably is Manta at SeaWorld, but SeaWorld is not going to be top of my list of places to go when I'm in Florida because the other parks also have very good coasters, plus a lot more that sets them apart. And
Yeah.
SeaWorld what once set them apart is it's become a reason not to go there, to be
Yes.
honest.
Yeah, for sure.
But the aquarium that they're touting for SeaWorld Abu Dhabi, some big numbers here. Uh, 58 million liters of water, 150 species, including sharks, manta rays, sea turtles, reptiles, amphibians, to name a few.
Yeah.
So yeah, we'll keep an eye on it. Abu Dhabi, you've got a pretty good lineup of coasters these days. Coasters, theme parks these days. Of course, the Warner Brothers World Park is very well thought of, very highly thought of. So yeah, Josh, are you willing to overlook questionable human rights records to go hit up some Abu Dhabi theme parks?
Maybe two wrong do make a right, Tom. That's all I'm saying.
Maybe they do. Maybe though, Josh, you could get some Warner Brothers rides a little bit in slightly more palatable locations at some point soon here.
How so?
We head to the rumor mill, Josh, and this article from the Hollywood Reporter, which is kind of a more general think piece analysis, if you like, about the recent trials and tribulations of Warner Brothers Discovery. But other outlets who have written this up have done so by focusing on a line that's somewhat buried about halfway down the article, where they cite industry sources and say that Comcast could well be eyeing up a takeover bid for Warner Brothers Discovery as early as April of 2024. Seems like maybe that's because of some cooling off period that may well exist, because Warner Brothers only just recently merged with Discovery to form Warner Brothers Discovery, Warner Bros Discovery, and but that hasn't really improved their outlook. There have been some kind of troubling stories around the company in the last few weeks and months.
Yeah.
The strategy around HBO Max and what should go straight to streaming and what should go in the cinema, and how to approach their big franchises like DC compared to what Marvel have been doing, and where are they at with video games, and that all seems like very mixed thinking. So it seems like that they maybe are ripe for someone to come in with an attractive offer that shareholders might decide to cut their losses and sell up. Maybe Comcast could be that company. Comcast, of course, the owners of NBC Universal, Josh, which means that for as far as we're concerned, this might just mean, hell yeah, let's get Hanna-Barbera back at Universal Parks.
Please.
Yeah.
That ride was so good. I love that ride. Get rid of Jimmy Fallon. Put Hanna-Barbera in there. Jobs are good.
Yeah, I mean, other than the fact that obviously consolidation is bad, what would you? Yeah, we are now going to play into we're going to talk like we are the very problem that leads to these things happening, or the sense of excitement that leads to these things happening. What would you want, Josh, if if Comcast bought Warner Brothers? I mean, what do you think that might mean for the theme parks?
Well, yeah, obviously I'd like to get Hanna-Barbera back involved in the parks. Like I say, get rid of that Jimmy Fallon ride because that sucks, but uses a similar technology to the Hanna-Barbera ride, so you could basically put that pretty much straight in there. They've got was it the Monsterverse they've got? So maybe you could do something around Godzilla, is it, in there? Game of Thrones would then become an option as well. If there's something, I think there might be a deal with New Line Cinema with Warner Brothers, so maybe that opens up Lord of the Rings a bit more for Universal. These are all things that I would love to see in the parks. And obviously, then you got DC as well. They've obviously got a contract with Six Flags around the world, around the US specifically. But in Florida, in Orlando, there is no Six Flags park. So maybe that opens them up to coming to Orlando. Maybe rebrand the Marvel Land with DC so that they get all of the profits there rather than having to fork some of it over to the rival company down the road.
Maybe. I mean, that's a really interesting one. I mean, I think Marvel is such a cash cow, and I'm sure there's part of Universal that even if maybe long-term logic, financial logic might suggest that you'd be better off if you thought what you were replacing it with was a big enough deal, and if you owned it fully, that would make more sense. But I'd imagine there's a slightly egocentric side of the company that just kind of likes the fact that they can keep Marvel away from Disney in Florida by
Yeah,
just clinging on to the deal that they struck so long ago now. That helps, of course, that what they've done with Marvel at Universal in Florida is excellent, and they've kept it nicely up to date.
yeah, for sure.
But yeah, it'll be interesting as to whether or not some of the deals that already exist for Warner Brothers IP at different theme parks around the world, whether or not those deals would work similarly to the Marvel Universal deal, and that they would persist regardless of any takeover, and it would be down to the right, the theme parks that have those rights to decide to give them up. Perhaps Six Flags would think, actually, no, we'd love to keep DC, and perhaps Hanna-Barbera would remain at the Warner Brothers World Park in Abu Dhabi. It wouldn't
Yeah,
go anywhere else. I mean, we'd have to wait and see,
for
but
sure.
it does open a lot of doors potentially. I mean, Game of Thrones, I'm not sure if it's quite family friendly enough to form the basis of a theme park land. I think you'd have to sort of.
Yeah,
I'm not sure you can really go above PG-13 if you're doing a whole land around a franchise. Maybe it would have to be limited to special events or Halloween Horror Nights,
yeah,
a brothel
yeah.
themed
I don't know.
horror maze.
Popeye's prostitution barges. I don't know.
Each to their own. Each to their own. The Matrix, I think they could do.
Yeah,
Be fun.
and obviously there's a Warner Brothers park in Abu Dhabi. There's other one in opening up soon. I can't remember where that one is now. Maybe would they then become Universal parks? Basically giving Universal another couple of parks without having to foot the bill almost.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, NBC Universal, or Comcast, sorry, which owns NBC Universal. They've not been shy of spending.
It's true.
They bought Sky not long ago, a few years ago now. A massive media company in the UK and Europe, if you're not aware. And I mean, look, Warner Brothers Discovery would be a deal, I think, of even greater scale. So it would be ambitious, but I'm sure the sources that are cited in the Hollywood Reporter article are well placed. And yeah, I mean, look, it's been acquisition season for a while, in kind of the media world, especially, whether that's films or TV companies or video game companies or companies that have even more fingers in pies than that. So it's not something that sounds absurd.
No.
It sounds very feasible indeed. So
Yeah.
one to keep an eye on, and of course, most importantly, what does it mean for theme park rides? That's what we really want to know.
Yeah. Tell us, Warner Brothers Discovery, NBC Universal. Tell
Oh
us.
yeah, and also come up with catchier names for your companies. Everyone, I think
They
that's
can't do
an
theme park
incredibly
ride
lazy
names.
naming conventions when it comes to acquisitions and mergers need some serious work. We can't go on like this where you just stitch the two company names together. I'm not having it, Josh.
Warner Brothers Discovery, Comcast, Warner Brothers Discovery, NBC Universal, Sky.
Please no. Please make it stop.
It just
Please
yeah. It's just Hagrid's spaghetti soup at some point.
It really is. It really is. It's all starting to make sense now. They name their theme park rides like they name their
Merger
merged
acquisitions.
companies.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, I mean, look, Comcast, if you're looking to expand your media empire even further, I will frankly sell this company.
Yes. Email us.
Make an offer. Email us. Yes. podcast@parkcrush.com. That's where you can email us too. Fine viewers of this here show. If you enjoyed the show and you want to come back next week, then the best thing to do is to like this one and then subscribe to the Park Crush YouTube channel. If you want it as an audio podcast, then consider finding us on Patreon. You can do that at links.parkcrush.com. That's also where all our socials are. And if you want to find out what the main Park Rush podcast is all about, then head to parkrush.com or just type Park Rush into whichever podcasting app you use. We've been on a hot streak of trip reports recently, and this week's episode focuses on Chessington from here in the UK. So do give that a listen. As for the YouTube channel here, it's not just In the Loop. We've also got the ongoing Euro Rush travel vlogs going up every Thursday. Josh,
Yeah.
not too many left to go now, but what is this week's?
It's Efteling this week
Oh,
from the Netherlands. Yeah. This week and
exciting.
next week.
Well, there you go. A double bill of Efteling. Fantastic park. So if you've not been and want to see what it's all about, definitely worth a watch. If you've not been for a while, maybe you've got withdrawal symptoms, then similarly worth checking out, I would say.
Yeah.
But that's going to do it for In the Loop for this week. We'll be back next time. Thanks very much for listening and stay very safe out there indeed. Goodbye, everyone.
See ya.